After the premiere of the special episode, we had a lot of controversy about the CGI they used in this project. We must say that in the creation of Power Rangers episodes there are always a lot of special effects, so this is a very important part of the project. We are not going to talk about the special effects of the Morphin, teleportation, laser beams, and explosions. All these effects were impressive, and this is not what bothered some fans. Let's talk about the CGI of the Zords, since this part was the one that many were discussing on social media. I want to start by saying that in my personal life I am a professional image maker. I am a photographer and graphic designer, a lighting expert, and I work with 3D object creation. I say all this so that you can understand that I am going to speak with knowledge of this subject and not as a person with a lack of knowledge that only seeks to criticize. With this said, we can now begin our analysis to know if the CGI was terrible or just a criticism without foundation. We should start by saying that the production did not want to do a battle with the Megazord suit since it was more expensive to do the entire battle with that suit. This was one of the supposed solutions given by fans to the executive producer of the episode, but his response was that doing this was more expensive and time-consuming. Many did not understand this, as one might think that using the suit would be cheaper than creating everything in CGI, as everyone knows that CGI costs a lot of money to make. Even so, the producer explained that to create this scene with the suit they had to transport the suit from Japan, find a location where they were going to shoot the scene, build the whole set, which includes a lot of sand to simulate the moon, coordinate the whole battle with professional choreographers, and then edit all of that. This also takes more filming time, which means more expenses as they must pay a lot of employees who are there on set that day. It also includes paying the actor who is wearing the costume, and they also didn't know if the costume was going to need alterations, as it is a very old costume. If we add all this up, then we can see that filming the Megazord scenes with the suit was going to be more expensive than doing it in CGI. The other thing we should know is that the same executive producer confirmed that the movements of the Megazord battle were choreographed by professionals before creating the scene on the computer. This choreography was recorded and used as an example to give all the movements to the characters in that battle of giants. That being said, we can start to do a deeper analysis of everything that this CGI has, everything that was good and everything that could have been better. For now, I can tell you that in my opinion this CGI was not perfect, but it was pretty good if we compare it with the budget the production had to spend. Let's remember that all digital content is different when we pay a higher price. An example of this is the comparison we made in a previous video where we talked about the visual effects of the Transformers movie. A movie like this has a super high budget, and the visual effects companies they hire are of the highest level because they can pay that price. For this reason, we cannot judge the special episode as if we were judging Transformers. The creation of all the Zords was based on the original Zords of the 1993 series, which obviously were not made in CGI, since at that time the best thing that worked was to use real objects. Something very important to mention is that these Zords from the original series were made of plastic or a similar material, since the light bouncing off these objects tells us that this was the material. Each material creates a different effect when light bounces off it. The reflection is different, the contrast is different, and the texture is different. The Zords are supposed to be made of metal or a similar material, so the light bounce we see on the 1993 Zords can't be the same as on the Zords in the special episode. In the special episode they changed this as they created the Zords as if they were made of metal, and that's why we can see that the brightness in certain parts is very different. The metal has more contrast and a more accurate reflection, which means it can reflect a sharper image compared to plastic. Another thing that was improved was the texture of the materials, since we can see marks, stains, and changes in the paint, as if the Zord had been in many battles. This gives more realism to the Zord and makes us feel that we are seeing something that really exists. Despite all these good things, there is still something that doesn't let us feel that these Zords are real, and they still look like something made on a computer. Obviously, we know that they are created on a computer, and no matter how real they look, we are still going to know that this is not real. Despite this, the goal of every realistic 3D creation is to make the viewer forget that they are looking at a digital character, but this only applies to those creations that seek to blend with reality and not to creations of fantasy worlds such as Pixar movies. There are several things that possibly did not allow us to forget that these characters are fictitious, and we can start with the light. The Earth has a very different illumination than the Moon's illumination, even though the light source is the same, the Sun. On Earth the sky is blue, the light is more enveloping, there is not so much contrast as the light bounces everywhere and everything is better illuminated. On the Moon the sky is still dark, the light only bounces off the ground and all objects have a lot of contrast. This means that the shadows will be very dark and the parts that are illuminated will be brighter. Humans are not used to this lighting, so it is one of the things that may have contributed to us not being able to feel that the Megazord was real. We can tell when the Zords are on the Earth they look excellent, with lighting that we are already used to, and so we can feel that they are real. Another thing that could have affected is the color saturation, since, being on the Moon with that lighting, then the colors can't be as bright. For those who don't know what saturation is, it is basically the brightness of the color. The less saturated it is, the duller the color is going to look. If we change the saturation of the color a little bit, we can see that it starts to look a little more realistic. Finally, I think this part was the most important and the one that really made that Megazord not look real. The animation of the character. This is one of the most important parts when you create something on a computer, because it doesn't matter if the design looks very real. With a bad animation it will still look like something fictitious. Even though the movements of this Megazord were created using a recording of a choreography that was made especially for this battle, even so, the animation didn't look very good. In the animation I am only talking about the Megazord, since the separate Zords were perfect, since their animation was very similar to the original movements of the sequence of the series. Unfortunately, the Megazord had very unnatural movements and looked like a battle from a video game. We can go on mentioning other things like the texture of the Moon, the monster, and many other things that made this CGI not perfect, but as we mentioned in the beginning of this video, we are not going to judge this as if they had the budget of a mega movie. Tell me in the comments your opinion about the CGI of this special episode. If you liked this review, give this video a like and subscribe for better Power Rangers CGI.